Joining me now is Ohio Congressman Brad Wenstrup. He is the chairman of the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic. He's done an incredible job on this. He's also a member of the House Intelligence and House Ways and Means Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for being here this morning. You've done so much work as head of this investigation. What is your reaction to yesterday's testimony by Anthony Fauci?
Well, first of all, I want to compliment so many of our members and our staff for the job that we have been doing over the last year and a half, and actually longer than that, to build the pyramid to get to questioning Dr. Fauci. And thank you for playing some of those clips. But, you know, what we saw from Dr. Fauci was no apologies for anything, no remorse for some of the things that took place. Many things that took place because of the rules, regulations, and mandates that he put in place, and many of them based without science, as he's now telling us. I mean, and so many people were harmed from all of this. I also want to say, yes, gain-of-function research was being done in Wuhan, China, and NIAID was funding that through EcoHealth Alliance. You can play games with semantics of the words of gain-of-function, but additionally, you're doing this in a lab where the People's Liberation Army of China is present and sharing technology that could easily create a bioweapon. But I think the most important thing, one of the most important things that we saw about Dr. Fauci's testimony is there's just no accountability for anything. You know, when it came to the 6 foot of distancing, which was not based on science, he suddenly yesterday blamed it on the CDC. The CDC came up with it. But he has no say or no remorse about the actions taken by the people that work for him in NIAID, such as Dr. Morens and Dr. Dazik, you know, who've been disgraced through this entire process. And the grant process that he signed, he says he has no accountability for because a committee decides that and he just signs it. Well, let me tell you something, Maria. As a doctor, when I sign a prescription, I'm responsible for what's in that prescription. There is no accountability to this man, or at least he claims there is none, and we have got to change that.
Well, no accountability whatsoever. He appears to be living on another universe here. He doesn't remember any of the times he said that it was a conspiracy. We've got it all on tape, that he tried to make us believe that he believed that it was natural when in fact he's in emails talking about the likelihood of the lab leak. So he knows that we were funding the gain-of-function research. Was he being paid by the vaccine makers as he was pushing the vaccine on all of us?
Well, that's yet to be determined, but there certainly were royalties. But you brought up another thing. You know, as he testified yesterday, he says, oh, I always considered lab leak as a possibility. Well, no, you did not.
No, he didn't.
Publicly. Not publicly, you did not. We find in the internal emails that only through our investigation that, yes, you were talking about it and you knew it was a possibility, but you went on the White House lawn knowing that it could be from the lab, that it could be engineered, and you claimed it came from nature, and you waved a paper written by scientists that you put together to create this process, to create this paper, and they even said that our focus is to disprove the lab leak theory. Now, come on. America's not stupid.
It's right there in black and white. And I want to ask you about consequences. I spoke with Kentucky Senator Rand Paul on Sunday, and here's what he said. Watch this.
Our investigation has confirmed that he did indeed lie. He committed a felony. He said that they did not fund, that the NIH did not fund gain-of-function, dangerous research in China. We now know that to be untrue. There was a massive cover-up from the very beginning. There was a behind-the-scenes effort to change the opinion of people. Many of the Fauci colleagues all believed that the virus did come from the lab, but then all evidence was then covered up. They began using burner phones. They began using couriers. They said, we can't do things electronically. I can take things by hand to his house.
Dr. Fauci knew all along that they were doing this gain-of-function research, and he says, oh, well, I think it's natural. I mean, really?
We have the private emails where he and everyone in his inner circle was saying, oh, my goodness, we've looked at the genetic sequence and it looks to be manipulated. It looks to be a creation of a lab. And then they do the opposite. A few weeks later, Anthony Fauci gets up in the White House at the podium and he quotes a scientific paper to prove that scientists believe this came from nature. But he didn't tell people that he commissioned and edited the paper.
So, Congressman, what about all of that? Now he claims he never said anything like that. He said he never called it a conspiracy, and he's trying to say that his fingerprints are nowhere near any gain-of-function funding.
Well, as you said, we have recorded interviews and video where he has said just the opposite. And so it's a matter of putting those things together. And look, Dr. Morin said in his emails that Tony uses Gmail too. I can contact Tony on his Gmail, or I can just walk right into his office, or I can go to his house. So we have asked for Dr. Fauci's Gmails, and I think it's important that we get them. Yesterday, he said, no, I never did any official business on my Gmail. Well, we're going to try and find out, just as we did with Dr. Morin's.
So where does this go now, then?
Well, we are going to take this further. We aren't finished with either of them as we dig into this. As far as any criminal liability, I think there's a case to be made, as Dr. Paul was pointing that out. And we may be making some criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. I'm not sure that we can always trust that, but that's the responsibility we have. But I'll tell you the other thing. Part of our job in this committee is to come forward with a path forward. And part of what we are going to be doing is making recommendations that there is criminal liability when the things that took place under Dr. Fauci's watch and NIAID come with criminal liability, and they'll be spelled out in law. We saw this with FISA court, and we made those changes with our FISA reform.
Well, it's just incredible, all of this. And now what are the media talking about? They're talking about Donald Trump. Now we've got a conviction. What are your thoughts on what's going on here, Congressman? You're doing the work that needs to be done to try to have accountability for the American people. The media is just focused on Trump and hoping that he goes to jail.
Well, I want to thank you and others for bringing light to all these things. I think America got a chance to see a lot of it yesterday, but let's face it, instead of focusing on something that killed millions and millions of people around the world and in the United States and destroyed businesses and caused so much harm, gets pushed aside to a frivolous court case.
Yeah, exactly. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. We're going to cover all of that and certainly follow your work. Thanks very much.
Thank you.